मैं हूँ Shruti with my second nature. And if you're wondering what, it has been forever since the last episode. Yes, I know. Because थोड़ा कहानी में twist लेके आ रहे थे इस नए साल के साथ. I have decided that as artists, हम कितना emote करते हैं, on people's work. Whether it is audiobooks, whether it's audio series, whether it's different podcasts. As an artist, as a voice actor, I do a lot of that. So obviously now I've gotten interested in कि जो लोग ये कहानियां लिख रहे हैं या जो इन कहानियों के पीछे के कर्ता धर्ता हैं, राइटर्स हैं, प्रोड्यूसर्स हैं, डायरेक्टर्स हैं, well, what goes through their head and how do they put this beautiful product out there for all of us to enjoy? So I'm going to begin this year by talking to the writer of The Vedic Warriors of 1857, the writer Nikita Khanna Pani. Let's get to know the story behind this book and behind the scenes of what happened while she was writing this book. Nikita, how are you? How are you feeling?
Shruti, I'm good.
I've been reading your book. So I've ordered it from Amazon. It's already come. I have begun reading it. I have to be honest with you. I haven't finished it yet. I am like about 70 pages into it, but I'm on my way. I'm like getting there and getting deep into the thick of the story, basically.
Really? Is it exciting for you so far?
Yes. Why do you think you're here?
Yeah.
Why do you think
Fair
I immediately was like, hello, I think we need to have a chat about your book. So let's get started. First, let's get to know you because I really want to know what you did before the book. And I know you've been a writer through and through, but what's been your story? What's been your journey like before one day you woke up and said, kitab likhte hain?
I want to write a book.
Yeah. What happened? Tell me about it.
So how much of the beginning should I go back to?
Matlab, like just basics. Tell me about like what your career was. Like,
so I'll give you like an overview of my career.
Super.
So I started in the film and television industry as a producer, as an assistant director.
Right.
And media was always something that really attracted me. My father's an actor. It was a very natural choice for me to take media.
Right.
And I did production and, of TV shows. I worked in NTV, etc. And after a point of time, I realized that this is probably not my calling. And I always had this fascination for writing, and I believed in my head that I'm meant to be a writer. That this is it. I can see myself, going up to my grave doing justice. But my thought was, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Like, how does one just turn to a writer one day?
Correct.
How do you wake up one day and say, okay, now I'm going to change to a writer, and then what?
Yeah.
Who do you talk to? Who do you meet? How do you get yourself a job? So the first thing I did was I wanted to try out to see if I could actually write a story. And I kept thinking about it. And at that point, I was reading something which was based on the French Revolution.
Right.
And I got really inspired and I started looking at our own history. This was 2009 or something. Yeah.
Wow.
And I came across this one note by a British officer that said that if all of India's princely states' armies had united, then the British would have fled without even going to war. And that made me start, and I started researching in 1857 at that point, and I was like, oh my God, there's so much that we don't know.
Yeah.
And somehow that inspired me to write, this story as just a 2-page synopsis to see if I can write something interesting.
The 2-page synopsis, The 2-page synopsis. Yeah. I just have to show to readers.
And this was 2009. I was like, wow. I was so wobbly. Like, I was like, I don't know if I can do this, but this seems like a good enough sample. And I started using it as a sample to say, hey, I've written this. So do you think you can give me a job as a writer?
Right.
So somehow I got into writing. I gave up on it for a short time because it seemed too difficult to switch from TV. If you're going from TV, the transition to a medium like writing is not easy.
Yeah.
But then the transition finally happened in like 2013 or something. And then I took up writing and I did a lot of jobs. And it was always in my mind to pick up this story at some point.
Right.
And make this into a full-fledged, at that point, screenplay, because I started off, hoping to become a screenplay writer.
Correct.
And I thought, no, this would be my second film because this is like so research heavy. This topic is so expansive, the canvas has to be really big. It can't, you can't just write a story about this like अच्छा आज मुझे inspiration मिली और मैंने 3 हफ्ते में लिख दी. This is not
Very
that story.
true. Very
This is
true.
not, yeah.
Yeah.
This is something that you have to read, research, really visualize, because you
Hmm.
know nothing. You're so disconnected from something that happened
Correct.
150, 200 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then finally in 2018 or 19, my life was looking great at that point. You know, I'd signed a film project. I was about to get a job in a really big production house as a writer. I was about to get married. Everything was going great, and I was like, "Wow, 2019 is my year. It's my year." And I was sorted. I was in my head pegged to become the next big thing.
I love
And
that.
then the lockdown happened, yeah. And then the lockdown happened, and
Oops.
everything disappeared overnight.
Wow.
You know, my job went away, all the projects got parked, my wedding got postponed. So I was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. Like,
Hmm.
it was like 0 to 0
That's quite a
overnight,
jhatka,
you know. And I
actually.
was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a huge jhatka. I remember
Hmm.
sitting in an auto, and the auto wala was telling me, madam, आपको पता नहीं है हमको कैसे कैसे तकलीफ हो रहा है, this that and all lockdown की वजह से. I said, भैया मेरा शादी postpone हो गया, मेरा job चला गया, मेरे से तो बात ही मत करो. So he's like, oh, don't worry, madam, सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा.
Oh,
So I
huh.
was like, wow, he's consoling me now.
So
It
cute.
looks that bad.
Wow. Wow.
So
So,
then my fiance, who's now my
huh.
husband, told me that, listen, uh, you know, your life is in your control.
Yeah.
You've been wanting to write a book for a very long time.
Yeah.
So what are you waiting for? Use this lockdown and, you know, write your dream.
Right.
So
Right.
that's how this happened.
Oh, wow. That's quite a story,
Yeah.
huh? That's quite a graph that it
Yeah.
happened and that, that you took. That's amazing. So now,
Yeah.
of course, like I told you, I've already begun reading the book, right? And as I was reading,
Yeah.
like you were saying that it was like 150 years pehle, जो चीज हुई थी उसको आज से compare करना and then to figure what the world would have been like that over there, to do that kind of a research. Before we get into the entire discussion about it, first, in your words, what is your story about? What's this book, The Vedic Warriors of 1857? What is it about? So that once we get to know your version of it, then I will add on my 2 bits of abhi mujhe kya feels aa rahi hai, and then we'll continue the discussion. But tell me about it.
So in my head, it was it was this magnum opus that is set in, in the 19th century, and how this gang of secret revolutionaries have a very ambitious plan of liberating India. You know, this is pre Bhagat Singh, this is pre Gandhi, this is pre all of those people.
Oh,
Because in the year 1857, when the mutiny happened, it did not initially start off with the thought of liberating India. It
correct,
was an outbreak. It was a spontaneous outbreak.
correct.
And I studied a lot about it, and I thought, why did it fail? You know, why did it fail? In any case, so
Yeah.
so it was these secret revolutionaries.
Hmm.
They have this notion inspired from the note I read of the British officer that
Right.
if we unite all of India's princely states army,
Yeah.
and we create one mammoth army, we can challenge the East India Company.
Right.
So they go about snatching and turning the armies of different princely states and trying to combine them into one mammoth army.
Right.
Except that they don't realize that when they will attack this one kingdom named Akshegar,
Hmm.
one member from the royal family survives the skirmish,
Hmm.
and she decides to avenge, the obstacle in the form of, should I say, more.
No,
So it,
wait. No, amazing. So what we're going to do right now is, but tell me, how long did it take you to write it? You said you started writing this in 2017,
2019,
19.
2019 March.
Right.
In
So
March
this has been your
2019.
lockdown
Yeah.
baby, basically. It's your
This has
lockdown
been
ki
my
mehnat.
lockdown baby. Yeah.
Lovely. Huh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
you
sorry,
were-
go ahead, please.
No, so I was just saying that before we go any further, I think it'll be great if we
Yeah.
do a little audio read of this, like, like an audio book, but not like the entire book, like just like a little excerpt. So I will read that out and then we'll go forward into more discussion about it. So let's do that. So I'm going to now
Yeah.
just do a little bit of reading with you, and
Yeah.
so that even you're aware of hum kya baat kar rahe hain and what the book is all about. So let's get into that, and then we're going to continue discussion with Nikita, Khanna, Pani. The carriage rode through a long, lonely stretch in a dark forest. The cold wind whipped through the grey beard of the old rider, who was visibly tired. A lantern hung next to him. Ensconced comfortably in the plush interiors of the carriage were Mr. and Mrs. Mackenzie. Robert Mackenzie lit a pipe and took a whiff, blowing the smoke into the blackness outside. They were in the thickest part of the forests surrounding the Vilasgarh kingdom. The tribes out there were known to be savage and dangerous. They were also known to keep to themselves unless threatened. I can't wait for the smug expression to be wiped off the face of that princess, said Margaret, removing her satin gloves. That's hardly a distant dream, darling. Vilasgarh has no male heir. The doctrine of lapse will pull the red carpet from underneath the feet of Maharaja Indrakant. He can see the end looming over his head. Why do you think he was so desperately prospecting for his daughter? Margaret laughed. Even a thoroughly useless suitor like Prince Ariman was in the running. The carriage rider was humming a folk song from the eastern region of India. He pushed the free end of his shawl over his shoulder as the air suddenly felt chillier. He was surprised to see the glow of a fire close by. Could it be lost travelers lighting up a fire to stay warm in the night? Should he inform the officer? Inside the carriage, Margaret viciously laughed at Indrani's impending misfortunes. A princess without a kingdom. Maybe she can rule the peasants. A peasant princess. Mackenzie smirked and rolled out a thick whiff of smoke. The carriage came to a grinding halt, making both the husband and wife suspicious. Mackenzie looked out of the carriage window and hollered at the rider. What seems to be the problem, Jagannath? There was no response from outside. Whip the damn horse or I'll whip you, you old swine. There was still no response. Margaret looked mildly irritated. Darling, you had better see for yourself. Mackenzie stepped out with his revolver in his hand. He walked towards the front of the carriage to notice that the rider was not there. You stupid Indian rascal! Suddenly, a whip lashed at his revolver-wielding hand. Mackenzie screamed in pain, dropping the gun. There were 5 men with leather eye masks standing before him. They were wearing fitted dhotis, leather armor vests, and leather belts with scabbards hanging from them. The tallest and bulkiest of them, with a curled mustache, was holding the whip. You must have heard about us. We are the Swadhin Sena, the brothers of justice, the seekers of freedom, the preservers of our motherland, said a thick-set masked man with a deep voice. Mackenzie blanched, realizing whom he was facing. The notorious bandits. He tried to reach for his gun, but out came the whip, throwing him to the floor. Robert Mackenzie, today is the day of your reckoning. You shall answer for your sins, said a bearded man. The lean man with brown eyes in the middle removed a scroll from his vest and handed it to him. Is there anything you would like to? The man looked up and noticed Margaret standing near the carriage. She was trembling in fear. Mackenzie screamed, Margaret, call for help. But Margaret was paralyzed. The lean, masked man tilted his head, smiling. Mrs. Mackenzie, your timing couldn't be worse. You can either flee into the night and hope to God you'll survive, or you can watch your husband getting skinned. Margaret started sobbing now. She removed her ring, earrings, and bracelet. Please take these and let my husband go, please. The 5 men looked at each other. The lanky man shook his head in disappointment. The bearded man stepped forward and relieved her of her jewelry. He turned to his gang. Fill this coverage. Please, begged Margaret. The lean man glanced at the jewelry. Let's see. A century of looting and pilfering our country in exchange for these jewels. The woman is one hell of a haggler. The thick-set man did not look amused. You British think you can bribe your way in and out of any situation. For 100 years, you've been greasing palms in Bharat and turning our countrymen against one another. The thick-set man advanced towards Margaret in anger. The tall, bulky man with the whip stopped him. He removed a knife from his scabbard. Margaret turned around and ran into the wilderness screaming. The bearded man sneered. Seemed like true love. Mackenzie shouted after her. He got up and stumbled backwards. The 5 brothers surrounded him. One of them stepped forward to retrieve the fallen gun and handed him the scroll. "What is this?" asked terrified Mackenzie. "An account of your crimes," said the brother in the middle, who had been quiet so far. His voice was almost a hiss. His coal-lined eyes bore into Mackenzie's. The general glanced at the man's wrist and saw a thunderbolt tattooed on it, the Vajra. He was the chief of the Swadhin Sena. Mackenzie started groveling. "Please let me go. Please. I will take you to the treasury or the magazine. I can tell you everything you need to know." Mackenzie started fumbling for his pocketbook. Coins spilled out of it onto the ground. "Here, take these. Trust me, I'm a very important man." The muscled man stepped forward. "Last year, in 1855, 10,000 Santals were killed with guns and cannons. You were commanding the company's forces." Mackenzie started stammering now. "Please, I was simply doing my job." "One lash of the whip for every peasant you killed. How many lashes are those in total?" asked the bearded man. The slim man responded, "That should be a total of 10,000 lashes." Mackenzie started pleading now. He distracted them long enough to try and make a run for it. The big man cracked the whip. It wrapped around Mackenzie's ankle and he fell face down to the ground, crying out in pain. The muscled man yanked his whip and brought it down on the Firangi with full force. One. Mackenzie shrieked. What is going to happen next? Now I'm fully intrigued and I'm also feeling like this angst and this fire which has already begun inside me. Like, wait a minute, ye kya tha? So, okay, now I know I have read the book a little bit from the start. This wasn't the first chapter. This was just a bit from the middle, like maybe around page 30, where we
had fourth chapter.
Yeah, the fourth chapter, which I'd read out just a tiny excerpt to you. Now, if you're also supremely interested in knowing, wait, what happened? Of course, I will, in the description, there will be a link given where you can go and click on it and buy your own copy. But right now, we're in discussion with the writer. Listen, now please tell me, when you were writing this and while I was reading it and the way it began, there is this whole relatability factor, which is super strong. Although I'm not a royal, I'm an Indian, and I have read textbooks and textbooks. I wasn't even alive when, when the independence struggle was going on. So I am far removed from the reality of the situation, but yet it is very, very relatable. One gets fully sucked into the reality of a situation, of the oppression they were feeling, of how they wanted to fight back, and how, although it's an act of violence, but you somewhere feel very justified with it. That mera badla finally वापस आ रहा है, वैसा type feeling comes. So when you were writing it, what were those moments that you were making sure to capture, to stick within the story, and which were the ones, was this your intention when you were writing it?
So, I'll start with the relatability point of it. I think as Indians, it's in our DNA. The memory is embedded in our DNA, the pain of slavery and of our colonial past.
Yeah.
We may know very little about it, but we all feel it.
Yeah.
So when we read something, when we watch movies which shows us triumphing against, these powers, secretly we all celebrate, secretly we all rejoice it, we feel happy about it.
Correct.
So I think that sort of that repressed feeling of the need to feel empowered, to take back power in our past that we didn't have, it exists deep within all of us, And so for me, of course, it was, the more I read about this topic, the more I got, it just hits you so hard, it just hits you. And you will get teared up at, just reading reams of stuff that you've not read, you've not heard of. Just so much pain in our history that we have blanked out, we have total amnesia for.
Right.
So when you write, you naturally want, you want as an Indian to avenge your past, your history.
Yeah.
And you infuse that feeling into your writing.
Right.
And that is what this brotherhood is about. This brotherhood is a fantasy that should have been a reality, but it's a fantasy that a lot of us wish existed.
Right.
you know.
Right. Yeah.
So everything that they do is something that we secretly root for and we secretly desire. Desire was the truth that could have
Correct.
happened back then.
Yeah.
So they are the hands of justice, that we wish existed in the 19th century. They're the masihas that we desperately wanted to
Correct.
rescue our ancestors. So yeah, so I think that was the sort of essence of the story, that
Right.
the feeling of a fantasy that should have, it's almost like Inglorious Bastards,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
where I think the Jews also sort of played out this fantasy of a secret cult that would go and avenge all the killings of Jews.
Correct.
And us having a similar past, which we don't realize, we do have a
Yeah.
similar past
Yeah.
in terms of a Holocaust, in terms of the oppression.
Hmm.
So I think we strike a chord with this kind of a brotherhood which
Right.
existed there.
Right. Right. So this whole genre, how would you define the book? Would
This is this genre is called historical fiction. So
historical
it's
fiction?
based
Okay.
in a very, it's
Hmm.
based in a very real backdrop of history, but it's a completely fictitious story.
Right.
There is
Right. Huh.
the setting is real.
Huh.
Everything that you read in terms of how people lived back then, of
Right.
course, it's based on research. You can't know everything, but
Yeah.
how people lived, what was happening in the country, what were the princely states like, what were the provinces like, or what were the British doing, is all inspired by facts. And I will say inspired by, because there'll always be somebody who knows better than me, and they'll be
Yeah.
like, ye galat hai, ऐसा
Huh.
नहीं
This
हुआ
is
था.
your version
So
of
I'll
it.
say,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, this
Yeah.
is my version, and this is inspired by history, but
Right.
it's set in as real a backdrop as one can put it in.
Right. So about the royals and all, did you research it up all online, or did you actually speak to some people?
Everything.
Everything.
No, everything online. Everything was online.
Huh.
It was. I read books. I read articles. I think research took up most of the time. It took up
Hmm.
1.5 years.
Hmm.
So it was frustrating for people around me, and especially my fiance, who's now my husband.
Huh.
And he was like, for every small thing, you're researching for days. But what do you do? I don't know what they ate. I didn't know what tables. Did they even have tables? Where did they
Yeah.
sit? How did
So
they?
true.
What did they wear?
Yeah.
What footwear did they use? They
Yeah.
didn't have watches also back then. So
Correct.
like every little thing, you can't go wrong with these things. Like I
Yeah.
said, people will be like, "Arey, this is ऐसा नहीं
अरे
हो सकता."
हाँ ये तो तब
Your
था नहीं ये
believability
क्या
goes out. Huh?
yes yes
If your
I agree.
believability goes out, people lose interest in your story because
Correct correct
it's inauthentic.
So what kind of audience is this story for? Because while I'm reading it, I know everyone will relate to it, right? But if
Yeah.
did you have a specific audience in mind when you were writing it? Because it tends to happen, when we're writing something, there is this kind of one target group that we will focus in our head and say, ye inke liye hai. So did you have any such person or
Actually,
people in mind?
honestly, Shruti, I didn't.
Huh.
I didn't. I'm a very self-absorbed writer, and
I love that.
for me, this was like I want this story. I want to write this story, so I want to write it.
Right.
At that time, I never thought who would be reading it. In my head, it should appeal to anybody who's who is interested in reading and who's an Indian, because I think this can be, anyone can relate to it. Like you said, being an Indian, anyone can relate to it. But the rest of the maths can be done by experts who are like marketing experts or book experts, and they'll fit a proper target audience to it. But
But
I didn't think of it that way.
tell me something. How many drafts did you go through? I'm very interested. Like how many
Oh my
overall?
God.
कितने draft खत्म किए? कितनी बार reads, rereads? How many times have you read your own book by now?
I lost count. I just lost count. I can't even tell you how badly I've lost count, because I've read it so many times that you can wake me up from my sleep and ask me what happened here, and I'll tell you about it.
Wow.
But it's not possible to keep. In fact, I finished the book late last year, and I started my publishing process early. No, not late last year. Sorry, I'm getting confused because of the pandemic.
Years are like
things
fully
blurred
gone.
the years. Yeah.
So
in 2020, I finished my book,
right.
and 2021, I was ready to publish.
And
then I gave it to a friend to read. He's a writer as well. And he said, you know what, your climax is not happening. And I was like, what? But I'm about to publish it. And he's like, yeah, but do you really want to publish it with this climax? It's really sad. And I was like, and I knew it,
Ouch, that's
subconsciously,
like a punch to the face. Like you really have to be
Yeah.
open to accepting so much criticism where the person is saying, do you really want to publish this kind of a climax? Nahi hoga. Wow, well done.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my, like, I was like, I was depressed for the next few days. I was like, shit. Subconsciously, when something is not working. You may be making excuses for yourself.
Yeah.
Then I took another 3-4 months to rewrite the climax.
Right.
So the publishing process ended up getting pushed to end of 2021 instead of early 2021.
Right.
And finally, the book got published, late November, early December, I would say.
So how did you deal with the disappointments? I want to know, like, how I think it's part of a creative process. That pehla step to is an idea which is worthy of being written and you actually land up finishing writing it, right? Because half the people I know actually give up midway. Then first important step, book khatam kar di, likhni. Then the disappointments start, because then the drafts and multiple edits and all that starts. How did you personally deal with that, the disappointments?
It's very tough. It's very tough because writing a book is very different from writing anything else. Because a book is like a marathon. It's a very long commitment. It's not a sprint. Aaj kiya, khatam, and you're done.
Fat nahi hota.
Yeah, ek hafte mein khatam. It's not like that. And especially not a research-based book. Historical fiction is not a genre. I respect writers who write this genre. Yeah, it's immense amount of research.
Yeah.
You have to push yourself every day. Every day you have to push yourself. Today you'll be like, shit. You think you've written something amazing, and then you wake up the next day and you're like, ye bahut bakwas hai. This is rubbish. Should I be writing? I'm not supposed to be a writer. This is bullshit. And you'll doubt yourself. You'll doubt yourself all the time. You'll be like, ye nahi ho sakta. Should I be writing? Will this pay me eventually? Because that's the ultimate outcome of everything is this rewarding?
Correct.
As human beings, we want a reward at the end of something.
Absolutely.
But you have to write without the expectation of a reward. You have to keep on writing every day without thinking if there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Right.
You just write because you love to write and because you want to tell a story that badly. That's the only thing that can keep you motivated.
Correct.
None of the other motivations will keep you in it long enough and keep you coming back to it every day. So yeah, I mean, the pure love and passion keeps you going. Nothing else can keep you going long enough.
Right. So now, when did it release?
First or second week of December.
Okay, so now I have one question which I know you're immediately going to hate me for. You're going to be like, ye kaisa sawal hai? Like, all my characters, all my entire book is my baby and all. Okay, yes, I get it. But gun to head, I want you to answer that if I had to, if I asked you to pick one character that is your favorite in your book, and I know there are lots of characters already. मैंने 70 pages पढ़े हैं, उसमें इतने सारे characters already आ गए हैं. So total, do you have a character count, by the way? How many characters are there in your book? Any idea?
No, I don't have a character count.
Okay, no. Excellent. So now tell me, who's your favorite? Which character doesn't have to be the main character? In fact, besides the main character, who is your favorite?
Besides the main character? Oh, that's a tough question. Besides the main character. So for me, the main characters are two, which is Anant and Pani, and it's primarily their story.
Right.
I think other than that, I like this character called Subedar Malik. He's a completely black character. He's not even gray. He's black, but yet you see some, even in black, you see some shades of. It was interesting to delve into his mind. It was interesting to explore a negative character also, and how even this negative character has a family at home. He's a family man,
right?
But when he's out on the field and he's pulling the trigger on many innocent people, it does prick his conscience, but it doesn't prick his conscience long enough for him to deter him onto the right path, to push him onto the right path. So how even when it comes to, I feel, I'm not sure how everybody else would feel it, but you wonder what choices he will make eventually.
Right.
Because there is a bit of a layer. There's a suspense to him also.
Right.
There's an angle that is attached to him, which you will not realize early on in the book.
Right.
Because the characters sort of open up slowly.
Right.
You come to know about their past or their background or their identities very slowly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so in that way, Subedar Malik is an interesting person, and I hope that people will wonder what choices he makes, and I think some people will root for him to make the right choices. But that's
Yeah.
for the reader to read and
Is
see
that because
whether he
you
does.
rooted for him to make the right choice while writing the character, and you didn't know whether he would or didn't? Wouldn't.
Yeah, I in my head I was like, okay, he would have a dilemma.
Right.
All of us do, right? Good,
Right.
bad, however we are. There
Yeah.
will be one part. There's a devil, there's an angel, and they keep pulling you into different directions. So there's nobody who exists without some sort of how should I say? Everyone's fallible. Everyone has this human side to them where
Correct.
they might want to do something that is right and righteous, but they might end up choosing something which is best for them, which is
Yeah.
not wrong.
Yeah.
Which is not wrong sometimes, but that choice may not make sense to all of us, because in our head the characters we read need to be idealistic.
Yeah.
They need to be, they need to be idols who are always making the right choices, doing the right things. We look for these kind of characters in books. We fall in love with these kind of characters.
Correct.
But if you really go into real people, we all have shades of gray. We all make selfish choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I guess secondary of all the secondary characters, I like Subedar Malik because he's interesting. He's negative. He's interesting.
That's really amazing. Out of what you were saying, there's another thought I had, which I would love to, like get your opinion about. So when you were writing these characters, and did it ever happen to you that you expected your one character to go in one direction, but the character pulled you in a different direction, and it became something which you had never even imagined it would while the book was going on? Did that happen to you?
Yeah,
And which was that
100%.
character? Yeah.
That was Indraini for me. What she started off was almost like a, uh, she started off as a very tomboyish girl. She started off as somebody who's very feisty and very stubborn and very idealistic in her own mind.
Right.
And then when she's put into a different setting, I kept her as the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's not possible for most of us. When
Yeah.
our circumstance changes, we react to it, we adapt to it, we change with it.
Absolutely.
So why would she remain the same? It's then she's just a cardboard cutout that I'm placing from one situation into another.
Correct.
If she's a real person, she will react to her surroundings. So I changed her. I gave her this, I made her more, I'm guessing human. She adapted. Yeah.
Correct.
She adapted to her setting, and she changed and she keeps changing in the book. You see her journey with her circumstance, with the conflict that is happening around her. She keeps changing the way she feels or she thinks. And that's one character I really had to deep dive into, because for me, her dilemma was the strongest, or her circumstances were the toughest. For me, her conflict was the toughest, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you got done, what was that feeling one day after all of it was done? What did you feel? Did you feel
it was like
elated?
It was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm finally done after hundreds of edit versions and spell check and grammar and I don't know what else.
But did you feel empty as well? Like, did you miss writing every day, or like the characters? Or...
I did not. I felt saturated and I was happy to take a break at that point.
Oh, wow.
But now I'm itching to go back. I'm itching to go back now. It's been a month. And I was, so I finished writing, but then, after writing comes the publishing, the marketing and all of that. So it's not like the process ended. It's still going on.
Right.
So you raised your baby, but now you got to push it out into the real world to see how it's going to perform.
Correct.
And you got to keep helping it.
Yeah.
So that was just one part of the entire process.
So which was
it's still going on for me.
Was it so far in the publishing process? What has been the toughest bit? which you felt like
Um,
somebody needs to fix this? Like, why is this process in India so difficult or easy? How is the journey for just publishing been?
Two things. One, it's so tough to get through traditional publishing.
Hmm.
I've gone through self-publishing with this book, and it's very tough unless you know somebody, or it's tough to convince somebody who's reading your draft, or even to get a response from a traditional publisher.
Right.
Hey, we've received your manuscript. It's like we'll get back to you in 3 to 6 months, maybe never. And so that's really tough, because everyone aspires to be writing with one of those big brands
Correct.
that will promote you, push you, and give you the right kind of credibility with people. But it's difficult to get through any one of those doors.
Right.
And the second part, for me, promotion is very tough, because as somebody rightly said, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, and you need to have very deep pockets to promote your book on the right platforms, on the right channels. Even putting it in stores is hugely expensive.
Really?
It's not something. Yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
So everything from a little banner in a store which has your book's name,
Yeah.
everything is a cost, and all of these things seem like, hey, मेरी book publish हो जाएगी तो अपने आप stores में आ जाएगी. But that's not how it. Yeah, that's not how it works. So selling each and every book is tough. I didn't even go in with a sales mentality, but eventually you want people to read your book. Forget about the money you make from it.
Yeah.
You want people to read it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's for me, for getting to a publisher and then getting people to read it. These are two major challenges.
Correct. Which is where we come in, and which is where you come in. So what you have to do now is go into the description, and wahan pe jo link diya hua hai, click on that, and wahan jaake you will reach the book. And if you like what you heard today, and if you liked that little excerpt that I read out, then go there and buy the book and show support for Nikita. Yes. So now, Nikita, tell me what's next. I know you started this whole journey thinking screenplay. So is like a film or a screenplay or like a web series, or what's next for the book? How do you want to see it grow, and what do you have in your mental manifestation feel? What is the next step for the book?
I would love to make this into a series. It's my absolute dream for Mr. Rajamouli to make it. Look at the ambitions. But yeah,
I love that.
I would love for the I would love for the director of Bahubali to make it, because I don't think anybody else can justify the canvas that the way he can.
Wow.
And Mr. Rajamouli, if you're hearing this, please, the name of the book now. Please make it. So that would be
just drop a hi. We'll send you the book and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll come and read it for you. But
lovely.
I would want to see it as a series, because I think it's too vast for a film.
Right.
And it would be great. And web series is now. I mean, this could be like India's own Game of Thrones, or something of a nice epic series that we desperately need right now.
Correct.
So yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great to make this into an epic series that's like.
I look forward to that. Lots of light for that vision, and I really look forward to that. And I'm already reading the book, and yeah, I can see it like that as well. Like it's already got that whole larger than life kind of a feel happening. So yes, I wish you the very best for the book and for furthermore the release. I hope the book does superbly well. And everyone who's watching this right now, go buy it right now. And thank you for being part of today's podcast and having this discussion with me.
Thanks for having me, Shruti. It was great having this little chat with you.
Bye. Take care, you guys. Bye. And thank you again.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.